Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today we're going to be doing an updated classic constructed tier list as well as discussing the most recent banned suspended announcement that came out today, talking about the changes this is going to cause for the classic constructed format, and then making a bit of a speculative tier list about where I think the pieces might fall in the coming few weeks, and I guess the next 2 months or so. No, actually only 2 months or so. Yeah, I was right the first time. 2 months until Outsiders releases. I think it's actually 2 months from today Outsiders releases formally. So we're going to have about 2 months of this format, and then a shakeup when we get the new cards from Outsiders with about a month before the Pro Tour. But let's hop into the banned suspended announcement here. We have 4 major changes, all pretty big and all a bit expected, I guess. We saw in the last 2 weeks, I think, of ProQuest that Ice is quite powerful and seems to be dominating the competition a little. No aggro deck could really break through OLDHIM or Icelander. They just had too much disruption, and it wasn't really possible. The only deck that could was Fi, because because of the Belittle package, giving him a lot of resources, and Fi made the best use of the Belittle package. He had all these 0 for 3 go again cards that let him play the Belittle package very easily. They gave him a lot of extra resources, and because he is the aggro deck that has the most go again written on the card, which really played around Hypothermia quite well, which was a huge force in the meta. So they took away Hypothermia, which was what was really holding back all of the aggro decks that weren't Fi. So those aggro decks are going to be a lot more playable now. They were able to play through Channel Lake Frigid and Frostbite's okay, but when you're on Briar or Dash and the Icelander plays Hypothermia, your turn is just turned completely off. So Hypothermia being gone means those decks at least can play through it as long as they have the resources. Amulet of Ice being gone is a huge change. It makes it a lot harder for the Icelander kit to kill at the end. This is probably the card I expected the least, was Amulet of Ice here. Maybe Winter's Wail also. I expected Hypothermia and Belittle here. Hypothermia was just way too good into the aggro decks, and when you take that away and you take away Amulet of Ice as well, 5 might be too good, so they're taking away Belittle. Permanently, it's being banned, and I expect that to last for the rest of Flesh and Blood's existence, basically. It was, for a generic, too powerful and too usable in every deck, basically, where it became kind of like you weren't playing different heroes, you were just playing different variations of Belittle decks, right? They kind of talk about that in this article a little, but Belittle was just a little too powerful for a generic toolkit. And we saw Winter's Wail being banned as well, so this is not a suspended until Living Legend type of thing. Winter's Wail is just gone. It was probably the strongest weapon in the game, but I'm not sure. I was surprised by it because I'm not sure what OLDHIM's going to be without it. He just has to play like either a two-handed weapon with Anathos or Sledge, or he has to play like Titan's Fist, which is a much worse one-handed weapon. So I didn't really see that coming, just because I'm not sure if OLDHIM can really exist even close to the same power level without Winter's Wail. So I didn't see that coming, but it is a huge ban for OLDHIM. Going to decrease his power a lot. I mean, he was either the strongest or second strongest deck. He was kind of tied with Icelander for best deck heading into this announcement. So I'm not surprised he got a hit, but I thought it was going to either be like Crown of Seeds or Channel Lake Frigid. Winter's Wail is pretty extreme, so big hit to OLDHIM there. And then I expected Hypothermia. Icelander definitely getting a lot weaker into the aggro decks. Amulet of Ice as well is going to slow her down and make it so it's harder for her to do her combo kill at the end with Storm Striders, or just harder for her to slow down the aggro deck. So this is the tier list I had in the most recent video. I think how it ended up being is more like OLDHIM and Fi were a bit stronger than I expected. So I think the tier list was probably maybe more like this. And then I think Dromai and Dorinthia were probably a bit stronger as well, especially with Ice being so good. It made Dromai pretty good. And then Dorinthia is just stronger in general than I expected. So I think the tier list was probably more accurately would have been like this if I was closer to what it should have been. But the Ice decks were just a little too strong. Obviously, Lexi not quite as strong as the other two, but Ice in general was a bit too powerful. And Fi was kind of the only aggro deck that could play through the Ice in any capacity. But let's reset this and take a look at maybe where we think the format will be after. So the heroes that were hit here, Icelander, I think will be like a high B tier, low A tier kind of hero. She got a lot weaker into aggro without hypothermia. Those were huge cards for her. She still has Channel Lake Frigid, which is really, really great, but and she still has Blizzard, but Hypo was probably the strongest one into Dash and Briar. So I think somewhere between these two tiers, probably the top of B tier. And then I think Oldhim is also probably going to end up in B tier. Maybe lower, but Guardian in general is so powerful, it's hard to put them any lower than B tier. Losing Winter's Wail is just such a huge hit, though, and he also played Hypothermia. So two kind of big hits for Oldhim. And yeah, I don't think either of these are going to be... I could see Icelander being in A tier. I don't think I could see Oldhim being up there. I think Phi will remain A tier. Well, I guess he was S tier in what I'm saying, but I think he'll be in A tier after this. Even though he's losing Belittle, the ice decks are in general getting weaker. He doesn't have to worry about Winter's Wail anymore, so that's less frostbites against Oldhim. And against Icelander, he doesn't really have to worry about any of Hypothermia shenanigans or Amulet of Ice. It's still going to be pretty tough for him when they play Channel Lake Frigid, but I think in general, Belittle was powerful, but not, the most important thing for him. So I think he'll still be quite strong. The other decks that we had pretty high up, I think these aggro decks that were really scared of Hypothermia are going to be a lot stronger now. This is, like I said, this is a speculative tier list, so I'm going to be making some claims that will maybe not be right in the long run, but I think Dory, all 5 of these decks are pretty good after this. I'm just going to put them all in S tier because I think these decks were all maybe in A or B tier and held back for one way or another, right? So Dash and Briar, I think were a little too weak to the ice decks to be good. But now without these 2 ice decks being as powerful, I think they'll be up here more. I think, Lexi will be able to be really good into these aggro decks. All 3 of these aggro decks are still pretty strong, and she's quite good into them. Bravo also pretty good into the aggro decks. I think I always overestimate Lexi, so she might be more A tier. And then Dorinthia is also pretty strong into the aggro decks, and her worst matchups, according to Josh Lau at least, are the ice decks, these 2. Oldhim was her worst matchup, and he just got a decent hit, and we'll see a drop in play rate. Icelander was a pretty bad matchup. And then Rhinar, who I think is maybe a C tier now with how much better aggro decks are getting. And her last bad matchup was Dromai, who was also going to get worse because aggro got better. Dromai was pretty good in the meta before this ban because she preyed on the ice decks, but basically everything Dorinthia was bad into, all 4 of these decks got worse with these changes. So Dorinthia is a lot stronger now. I think all of these decks, maybe, I guess I can put Phi up here too. I mean, I think he's still quite good. So we've got kind of these 3 aggro decks, and then these 3 answers to the aggro decks. Now looking at what answers these decks, Lexi is still going to be weak to any kind of Guardian, so still the Bravo, but her other stuff she's weak to, like Dromai and Oldhim, definitely look weaker. I just spoke to what Dory is weak to down here, so I think she has not as many weaknesses up there. And then Bravo is, I guess, weak to Dromai and then some of the Pistol Dash stuff. But all of these decks look pretty good at the top here. I'd be pretty comfortable playing any of these. I'll put Azalea up here in A tier. This is maybe my speculative. He's getting way too speculative. But she's pretty good into all of these aggro decks. And she was pretty horrid into these 3 decks down here. But I don't think any of these are going to be quite as powerful. So kind of, yeah, I don't know. I'll put Azalea maybe higher than she should be, but I think there's a lot of good new arrows from Dynasty, and I think she's pretty good with them. I think Arachne is going to stay in C tier until Outsiders. There's just not enough good Assassins cards. I'm going to put Kano up in A tier. I think he's pretty good into a lot of these decks up here. With Oasis Respite still in the format, he still has the potential to be blown out, but I don't think a lot of these decks up here are going to be playing Oasis Respite. I think Dromai, which was a little hard for him, got worse. And I think overall, I mean, he's in a good spot to just Wildfire combo these. He could Wildfire combo like any of these top 6 decks here. I'll put Viserai higher as well. Put him up in A tier. I think he's the worst Runeblade, but he was really hating to see either of these ice decks. He also hates Hypothermia. He also hates the Oldhim Winter's Wail stuff, and I think he's a lot better because of it. And then I think, I mean, Prism does not exist. I think there's not really any D tier per se. I could maybe even cut this off because I feel like usually there's maybe one too many tiers on this tier list. But these 3 decks are, Brute in general is maybe not quite where it wants to be right now. The support from Dynasty just wasn't enough to get it all the way there. Katsu is definitely doesn't have the support it wants. It's just a supremely weaker Fi. And then Bolton, Spirit of Irina or whatever it was from Dynasty was not enough at all. Just 1 card boost there. So these decks, either just didn't get enough support or aren't good into the field, like Rhinar not being good into these aggro decks. This is kind of where I see the format right now. Pretty speculative, but I do think the aggro decks got a lot better, especially Briar and Dash got significantly better with Hypothermia gone. I think with Winter's Wail gone and Oldhim getting weaker, all the aggro decks got stronger. Dorinthia got a lot stronger with 2 of her worst matchups getting weaker. And then decks that prey on these aggro decks getting better are also getting better, obviously. So this is kind of where I'm going to see everything. It's certainly going to have a few wrong picks on here. I don't know if all these 6 decks are going to be S tier. That's certainly kind of a bit of just a throwing something on the wall, hoping it's 6 with those 6 in S tier. I think maybe 3 or 4 of these are only going to actually be S tier, but all 6 of these have potential to be one of the best decks. So this is kind of where I see everything. These are some pretty extreme changes. Like I wasn't expecting. I thought maybe One Day Belittle would be gone. I thought Hypothermia was way too strong to be a card, especially with Icelander. But I did not really expect these 2 middle ones as much, especially the Winter's Wail. It really just hurts Oldhim extremely badly. So yeah, I'm pretty surprised with a few of these. I am excited to try out the new format though. 2 decks I've been playing lately were Briar and Dory. I was, I've gone to 2 Pro Quests this season and I top 8'd them both with Briar and Dory, but it wasn't easy. They both weren't great into the ice decks, and I just dodged ice decks a lot to be able to make it there. I think I played only 2 Icelander on Dory, and I went 1-1, and then on Briar I don't think I played any ice decks on the way to top 8, so I kind of lucked into that. I think if I ran into ice, I wouldn't have top 8'd with either. Both of the heroes I were playing were more in A tier or B tier, but pretty happy for me because I think with Hypo gone and Winter's Wail gone, Briar and Dory just both got a lot better. So I think I'll probably do a Dory deck tech sometime this week. It's just going to be kind of me doing a very shortened version of all of Josh Lau's Dory stuff. He's the best Dory in the world, and I would definitely check out his stuff if you're interested over at the Card Guys. And then the Royal Briar deck I posted, you could probably take that exact 80 basically and win most of your events right now with this new meta. So yeah, go have fun. I'm super excited to try it out. The changes are effective on Monday, January 30th, after ProQuest Season 3. So this last weekend of ProQuest Season will not be with these changes. So probably play Oldhim and Icelander while you can. But yeah, on Monday, excited to try this stuff out at my local armory. Thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time.